So here with BJ Fogg from Stanford University's Persuasive Technology Lab. How are you, BJ?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Thanks for coming. So you just finished up a speech to a bunch of marketers downstairs. So just tell me a little bit about what you were talking about. Give me the highlights.
Well, what I was trying to do in the keynote was help people think clearly about how behavior change happens. Mm-hmm. And so I've developed a model of behavior change that has three components. People have to be motivated, they have to have the ability to do what you're doing, and they have to be triggered. In this talk, I especially emphasize this thing called hot triggers.
Hot triggers, yeah. So talk a little bit more about what you mean by that, because that was actually really fascinating. You talked about Facebook, which is an example that everybody can kind of relate to.
Yeah. So a trigger is like a call to action, a cue or a prompt, and so I'm calling it a trigger.
Yeah.
And there are triggers that are hot, meaning you can take action right away, and triggers that are cold. A cold trigger would be like a magazine ad or something I hear on the radio and so on. A lot of broadcast media is cold trigger. But now with technology we have hot triggers. And so hot trigger is like, it could be something that shows up in your Twitter feed where you can click on a link. Mm-hmm. It could even be an email that comes to you that says, watch this video, and you click. It's something you can do right now. Right. And Facebook has been, in some ways, the master of hot triggers. I think, in some ways, it's been core to their success. If I get something in my email that says somebody's tagged you in a photo, that's a hot trigger. Right. And it's a very motivating one. And so I just click on it, and it's like, what photo have I been tagged in? And I think it's one of the most compelling things. Yeah, right, because it's something that you want to do immediately. Yeah. So what's the lesson for marketers in that? Like, okay, so you're a marketer working in a big company, and so, as you think about that, like if you were to apply that to kind of, what happens in the real world, you know, I mean, is their goal to really create triggers that to sort of motivate their audience? I think absolutely. Yeah. I mean, whether you like it, want to admit it or not, virtually all companies and organizations have persuasion goals. Mm-hmm. They want people to do things. And sometimes persuasion is seen as a little bit of negative. I don't think it's negative. I think it just depends on what your goals are. And so for marketers, people working in organizations, I think getting clear about what behaviors do we want. Do we want people to sign up for this newsletter? Do we want people to recycle? Do we want people to share this with a friend? Right. And then the way you get behaviors to happen is you have to put hot triggers in a user's path. Right, right. And as part of that, don't expect that they're going to sort of veer off and take a different path, but really make it easy for them. So put it in front of them in a way that kind of makes sense for them. Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that makes Facebook different as a path, so in our activity stream or feed or whatever they're calling it, they change the name all the time, but where I get updates from my friends, those triggers that come to me, like see this article, join this cause, blah, 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 those triggers can be more effective than in other places. Because when I'm at Facebook, I'm not there, I'm not goal-driven. I'm there to kind of just hang out and see what's up. And so it's easy and natural for me to say, oh, I'm going to go see what this event's about, or I'm going to go see what this cause is about, and click away. Whereas if I'm working on my computer, say writing a paper, and the computer pops up something that says, update your virus preferences, that takes me off my path, and that's frustration. Right. What's interesting about Twitter and Facebook is it's a user's path, but people are happy to get off the path. That's why they're there. Oh, I want to go look at this photo. I want to do this. And that's not very common in other things we do. We're very goal-driven. We don't want to get off our path. So Twitter and Facebook are sort of, like conduits to change, that they're sort of, what's the word, like an empath almost. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, an email has been and still is, depending on how you use email. So email, most people have a path of email. They look at their inbox, they go through it, you can reach people through email. But people have been triggered in so many ways through that, and there's not a great filtering mechanism. Whereas in Facebook, it's my friends triggering me. Right, right. And if they keep triggering me in the wrong ways, if I keep hearing about the Mafia game or Farmville or whatever, I can kind of dial them down. Yes, exactly. So you can tune that feed a little bit. Yeah, yeah. One of the things that you did talk about that I thought was interesting, where you talk about how old technologies, or that actually why Facebook is possible because of email, which I guess in our world is sort of new technologies and by old technologies. Can you just expand on that a little bit? Yeah, I think when you look at, well, why don't I start here? When you look at what is a huge win, the Grand Slam, the World Series for a company is to become a platform. a platform, meaning other people are building functionality to work with what you've done, that other companies' entire economic success depends on you as a platform. So eBay achieved that, PayPal's achieved that in some ways, and so on. Well, certainly Facebook was not a platform at one time. You know, if you rewind a few years, Facebook was starting out, and it would use email to trigger people to go to Facebook.
Right.
Well, that trigger then turned into a routine. So triggers that happen effectively enough and often enough then develop routines. Then once enough people have a routine, go to Facebook all the time, that then becomes a platform. Now, Facebook smartly accelerated that becoming a platform by launching Platform in 2007, right. Opening up that API. In a similar way, Twitter. Twitter was only able to launch, or the idea of Twitter launch was because of texting, which is why you have that constraint. And as they grew, they realized it wasn't about necessarily texting off the phone. They became something else, followed their users, followed the energy, and now they become a platform.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Huh?
So, by extension, the companies that use the existing platforms the most successfully, the ones that know how to trigger through Facebook and trigger through Twitter, will become the platforms of the future.
That's interesting.
It's hard to predict exactly who those people are, but you could imagine somebody that runs a game, let's take Farmville, on Facebook, which is a super compelling game. As people get ritualized to using Farmville, get up every day, I've even heard of people getting up in the middle of the night to harvest onions or something, well, then Farmville may become a platform for other opportunities.